Hey everybody, welcome back to Football Talk with Vinny. In today's video, as you can tell by the title, we talk about Julio Jones. Earlier today, the Atlanta Falcons made a report saying that they are willing to listen to trade offers on any of their players. And obviously, they put that as, very general, but the real topic was floating around. The real topic that was floating around over the past day or so was the Falcons maybe potentially trading Julio Jones. Now, obviously, I can see them trading Julio Jones, but me personally, I would be shocked if they did, just because when you restructured Matt Ryan's deal to, essentially convert his base salary this year into more signing bonus, what you're essentially doing is you're locking yourself in to having to pay Matt Ryan. So because you're having to pay Matt Ryan and you really can't release Matt Ryan for another year or two now, it seems like you're going to try to win with the roster you have. And I don't think that getting rid of Julio Jones is going to be a positive for your team. Now, obviously, if you do end up trading Julio Jones, you probably, if you're Atlanta, should take a quarterback with the 4th overall pick, because at that point, maybe take a quarterback and you have him sit behind Matt Ryan for that first year, and then you can get rid of Matt Ryan. And maybe look to trade him, or if you can't get anything for him, you just release him. But then at least that quarterback that comes in, whoever you take, he has a year to learn behind Matt Ryan before he gets in and starts. Now, as for Julio Jones, his numbers, obviously he only played 9 games, but he had 51 receptions, 771 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So if you average those numbers over a 16-game season, if he had not got hurt, these averages come out to 90 catches, 1,370 receiving yards, and 5 TDs. So that's obviously nowhere near an aging wide receiver's numbers where, he's not going to get a big deal and you just don't think he's the same player he was. Now, that's obviously why I don't believe that Atlanta is going to trade him, because again, he's still a good player. Even if you don't think he's the best wide receiver in the league anymore, he's definitely still top 10. He's probably even still top 5. Now, obviously, if they do trade him, this video would take hours long, because almost every single team in the league could potentially trade for him, especially depending on what a team would have to give up to get Julio Jones. There's really not a team in the league that has so much depth at the wide receiver position where you wouldn't want to bring in a guy like Julio Jones. Just off the top of my head, maybe the Cowboys may be the only team that you wouldn't want to bring him in, because our cap situation is in a really bad spot. So even though he's a talented player, we already have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. So bringing a wide receiver probably would not be so great, because then we'd have to let some other guys go next year. So obviously teams like the Green Bay Packers and New England Patriots could use him. Even teams that are already good, like Kansas City. Now, if you are a team that does trade for him, he's only going to be owed $15 million this season and about 11.5 over the next 2 years. So, that's only going to be $38 million owed over the next 3 years, which is actually relatively cheap considering the top-end wide receivers nowadays make about $20 million a year. There's talks that if Julio Jones is even traded, that Atlanta, because of their cap situation, would have to designate him as a post-June trade. And really what that does, if you're unfamiliar with the cap and how that works, first off, I have a video where I talk about that. You should definitely check that out. But if you're already semi-familiar, you just haven't heard of that before, what it really means is the bonus money that is owed that year gets paid. But the bonus money that's owed for the remainder years, instead of it getting accelerated to that current season, when you designate someone as a post-June cut or trade or anything like that, you can now use the dead money. You can now use the bonus money that you owe in the prior seasons to go onto next year's cap. So essentially the way it works is Julio Jones has about a $7.5 million prorated bonus over the next 3 years. So if they were to designate him as a trade for the post-June, they would only owe him about $7.5 million on dead cap this year, and then next year, the remaining 2 years would prorate to that year, so they would owe about $15 million to Julio. And the reason why you do it that way is so you don't have to eat $22 million this year, especially since free agency is already over, you're about to do the draft. Most teams don't have $22 million just to take a huge dead cap hit like that. So again, like I said, I don't really think he's going to be traded. I just think it's kind of, you hear all these stories right before the draft every year, right? And a lot of players that were floated in trade talks actually don't get traded, right? You'll probably expect to hear Russell Wilson's name come up over the next couple days, right? Because earlier in the offseason he was expected to get traded, or there was a big likelihood that he could. And then guys like Adam Schefter and stuff were saying like, hey, if he does get traded, it's probably going to be closer to draft day, if not on draft day. But if draft day passes and he doesn't get traded, there's a big likelihood that he'll actually just be on Seattle's day one roster. So obviously that's an intriguing storyline to see over the next couple days if he does get traded. Obviously, because he's going to be really designated as a June 1st trade, you can't trade any draft picks that are in this current draft that we're about to go into in the next week or so. Just because if someone's going to be traded on June, I think the way it works is you're not able to trade technically picks that have already been picked at that point. So you'll be trading Julio, you'd have to give up some of next year's draft capital. But that's going to be the end of this video. Just let me know down in the comment section, what are your thoughts? And hopefully you could tell by the video I'm a little sick, so I probably don't sound the same a little bit. That's why I kind of hesitated on doing the video, but I figured I just wanted to make it and get it out there for you guys. But again, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to the next one. Bye.